Have you had enough of your toxic workplace affecting all of the relationships in your life so that now your whole life feels toxic and like you're being dragged into waging war every single day against your will, and you want it to stop, but you don't know where to begin? How would you like the secret to choosing and waging your battles? Are you ready?
What do I say?
DanTheGunnerTraining.com.
This is the mother of all lessons that I've ever given you. What I'm going to do for the next 9 weeks, I'm going to be giving you one principle a week from the 9 principles. And we're going to talk about it, what it is, how it works, and how to use it. I'm also coming out with new live videos, question and answer sessions, as well as, of course, danger phrases, power phrases, and tactics at least once a week from now on. So hit that notification bell. You'll be the first to know. This week, I'm going to start out at the very beginning because a lot of people these days more than ever are struggling with toxic relationships, and they want to know, how do I know when to battle it out? I just got a question, for example, from a viewer, and she was asking me, what do I do? My supervisor is constantly berating people and treating them like garbage right in front of me, and I want to get involved, but I don't know what to do. What do I do? There's a process that you can use to help you clarify your thoughts, clarify your strategy, and really be confident when you choose to engage in a battle like that. Like the one I was describing. Or when you choose to say anything, if you believe that it's an important message, if you believe that this may be a turning point in your life, if you believe that something is a little bit extraordinary, out of the ordinary, something you have identified as special. This is not just an everyday situation. This requires a little bit of something extra, but I don't know what it is. This will help you determine what it is. The 9 principles work like this. When you have a situation that you're dealing with and you are struggling with it, find some place where you can clear your thoughts, put the situation right in the front of your mind, focus on it, and go through each one of the 9 principles and ask yourself, how does this apply to this situation? And by the time you get down to number 9, you will have solved the problem. You will know what to do and you will have clarity of thought. When you recognize that something is an issue that you need to deal with, remember, we tend to be born with everything that we need really to get along in life and really serve our purpose, to learn the lesson that we're here to learn. I have no idea what lesson I'm here to learn. I have no idea what lesson you're here to learn, but I do know when an assignment presents itself to me. That I can recognize. Every person that I meet is an assignment. Every person that you meet is an assignment. So be gentle with your assignments. Be tender. You'll be glad you did. That said, when I do recognize a situation or a person or a conversation as an assignment, I think, this is not just an everyday cycle, because we are generally in cycles. You know what I mean? We go through life cycle, kind of hypnotized through life. And then every now and then we wake up and we recognize something as a possible turning point. Remember, to recognize means to know again. And isn't it funny how we recognize things all the time? Ooh, I recognize that as being important. It's because we go through an unlearning process, basically, in this day and age, where we forget what's really important. We set aside things like love and compassion and kindness and mercy, and we replace it with other objectives. And then something happens in our life, generally for most of us, especially if you're here, where you recognize, again, that's not important. What is important? What's generally important to me, and what I hope is important to you, and probably is if you're here, is that when I speak to someone, I speak from a loving place, that I show you who I am. I'm my Father's son. That's who I am. What makes me up? What am I composed of? What am I made of? Well, if you look to France just went down as low as you can go, as low as we have ever gone, in terms of, on a microscopic level, looking at things to see what things are made of. France wanted to know, what is everything made of? Because when I'm dealing with a problem, when I'm dealing with a situation or a relationship that's causing me dis-ease, it's because something has been brought to the surface that I'm supposed to notice and I'm supposed to work through. If you're pushing some buttons in me that are causing me to feel bad or think of you when I'm not even around you anymore, that's because you're bringing up an issue in me that I have yet to work through. But it's about me. So I need to know who I am. If this is about me, what am I? What is that? What is me? What am I? Because we tend to get distracted. You know what I mean by facts? A fact may be, you said this to me and now I'm angry. That's a fact. The truth is, the way I feel about what you say has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. And what I say back to you has nothing to do with you. That's all about me. We tend to let facts get in the way of the truth. You know what I mean? Like my mother, she's a difficult person. That is a fact. I'm sitting here still in my office. I'm not moving. These are solid objects. Here's a bottle of Coke. This is what is that? A glass desk. This is a green velvet chair. That's a mural of me. I have very strange things in my office. A glass desk, a green velvet chair, a mural of myself. That's all a fact. I am here. You are there. Those are facts. The truth of the matter is, however, this is all just empty space made up of little molecules moving so quickly they give the illusion of being separate things. The truth of the matter is we are siblings. You are my brother or my sister. That's the truth. It may look like we are separate people. It may look like these are separate objects. But when you go right down to it, as low as you can go on a molecular level, on a genetic level, on an atomic level, when you get right down in there, it's all the same stuff. We are all the same stuff. You and I are the same stuff. We're made up of the same stuff. And it's very difficult to determine where does something end and something else begin. Because when you go down to that atomic level, there are no walls. It's all just empty space made up of little molecules that move around so quickly. They give the illusion of being solid objects, but nothing is solid. It's all made up of little tiny molecules and atoms and protons and neutrons and all that stuff, right? We learned this. So France wanted to know, if I go down even deeper, what is holding these molecules and atoms and protons and neutrons together? What is it? Because something's got to be holding this together. And so they called what they found when they looked real deep, they called that the God molecule or the God something or other. They called it God. I'm just going to say that because it had something to do with God, the God product, the God molecule, the God string, whatever. I tend to think of that God as love. That's what I think of it as. And so they found that really, just like Captain and Tennille, it is love that is keeping us together. And when I say that, I'm using my words, but you know that it's true. You know it's true. Because there are times when nothing could possibly hold me together if it were not love. There are times that you feel like you are going to totally lose it. You are falling apart. There are times in our life where we can't believe that we do not literally fall to pieces because we are broken. What is it that holds us together? Remember that there are truths. If something is true on any level, it is true on every level. And the truth is the only thing strong enough to keep us together and to keep us from totally falling apart and becoming just a big old mess of atoms and molecules and protons and neutrons, the only thing that it could possibly be is love. And that is what France found. That's what keeps us together. That's what I'm made of. That's what you're made of. It actually has a light, this energy, these little strings that are holding it all together and keeping the illusion up that we're solid. That's love. That has light. That has energy. That's what you are. That is what is in me, but not of me. That is what's keeping me together today. I know who I am. And that is important because principle number 1 is there is no neutrality in the universe. What does that mean? And if I'm trying to solve a problem, how does that help me knowing that? I'm a physics fanatic. The reason I'm a physics fanatic is because if you ever study quantum physics, it's the study of the whole universe. It's the laws of the universe. It's how things work. And if you are familiar with the laws of how things work, when something is a law anywhere, it's a law everywhere. It's not just a law sometimes in some places. If something is a law, it's true everywhere. Whoosh. And what I find the most fascinating of all is the same laws that physics talks about. Those laws that are true on a physical level, I have found no difference between Those laws and the laws that govern in the interpersonal level, the laws that govern the metaphysical level. If it's a law anywhere, it's a law everywhere. It's really kind of freaky, but it's true. And there are principles that are true. And if a principle is true anywhere, it's true everywhere. One of the principles is that you'll find in the universe, that you'll find in physics, and that you'll find in communication is transference. Transference is the principle that any object placed in any environment is going to start to take on characteristics of its environment and start to look like, act like, walk like, talk like its environment, or the opposite will take effect, and the environment will start to look like, walk like, act like, talk like, behave like its object that's sitting in that environment. It's kind of like this. When you put a teaspoon in a cup of hot coffee, transference suddenly occurs, and the coffee starts to cool down and take on the temperature. Those are the traits that are being transferred at that moment, starting to take on the temperature of this teaspoon, and the teaspoon starts to take on the temperature of the coffee. The teaspoon heats up, the coffee cools down until they both become the same temperature. Now, I'm assuming that if we waited millions and millions of years, it would all become the same stuff, just a big old blob of cosmic, atoms and molecules and protons and goo. But since we don't have all day or all time, I'm just going with just the temperature part. Until they both become the same temperature, which they eventually will, that is transference. There's no neutrality in the universe. There's no neutral charge that just goes floating by and doesn't affect anything else. Everything in the universe is always affecting everything else in the universe. For every single effect you see, there has been a cause. For every single cause that you see, there is and will be an effect. There is no effect without cause, and there's no cause without effect. We tend to have things backwards frequently, though. And when we look around, we tend to see many different things that we see as cause that are actually effect. We see many things as effect that are actually the cause. We go through such an unlearning process in our life. We learn to see things backwards. And then certain things pop up in our life because we tend to go through cycles, right? Cycle. Everything's the same. We tend to be hypnotized half of our life, where we just go through the motions. Cycle, doing the same thing, getting the same result, cycle, and then poof, turning point. A turning point is when we change the cycle, when we break out for a moment and we recognize something as different. Remember, when we recognize something, to recognize means to know again. Now, we recognize things that we believe it's the first time we've ever seen these. We think this is the first time I've ever seen this, but I recognize this as something special. Remember that when you feel as though you are recognizing something, you are knowing it again. You may have forgotten it. You're starting to remember. And if I recognize something as important, wait a minute, this is not like all of the other communication challenges I've had. This is getting to me. This is something that I carry with me even when I'm, if I'm working in a toxic environment and I'm at home, I'm no longer at work. Why am I still thinking about it? Why am I eating dinner with that toxic boss? Why am I washing dishes with my toxic boss? Why am I sitting on the couch with my family watching TV and my toxic boss? Why am I lying in bed and sleeping with my toxic boss? And how do I stop the insanity? This is how. You take the 9 principles and you go through them. You find a quiet spot. You put your challenge in the front of your mind and you clear everything else as best you can. And you go through each one of the principles and you ask yourself, how does this apply to this situation? And I guarantee you, there has never been a situation where once I have gone through these 9 principles and applied it to my situation, it has not been resolved. Now, when I say resolved, I mean, how do you judge success when it comes to communication? How you feel about it. Do you feel good about it? If you feel good about it, it's success. If you do not feel good about it, it's not a success. You are the only one who knows. You're the only one who can judge. But that's all good because it is all about you. One of the laws is I am in charge of every relationship in my life. That's the fact and the truth. I must recognize that. I have a relationship with you. I'm in charge of it. You have a relationship with me. You're in charge of it. I'm in charge of every relationship in my life. You are in charge of every relationship in yours. And there's something in communication where it's kind of like metaphysics where, there's the mystery of the Trinity, if you've heard of that, or if that's part of your thought process or religious beliefs. I'm not religious and I don't get religious here, but I do know that there are mysteries, but truths. And when you know truth, when you see truth, when it speaks to you, when something says to you, this is truth, listen, because it probably is. We recognize truth in many different areas. I can recognize truth speaking to me in a fairy tale. I can recognize truth speaking to me in a Disney movie. I can recognize truth speaking to me in a Bible. I can recognize truth when it speaks to me through mythology. I can recognize truth in many different areas. Truth speaks to us and it tells you this is true. So listen, one of the truths that I know that I've experienced in different places is there's a mystery of the Trinity. In some schools of thought or religion, it talks about the what they say is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and how it's all really the same thing. And people will think, oh, that's such a mystery, how it's all the same, but they're different at the same time. That's no mystery. We all experience that every single day. The relationship that I have with my mother, I might see as different from the relationship that I have with a stranger that I met in the street who's being disrespectful to me. Is it? You know what it's like when you come home at the end of a bad day and somebody says something to you and you snap at them and then you say, I'm sorry, I had a really bad day, I apologize. That is a very obvious example of how any one relationship affects other relationships. But that's always going on. If I dishonor someone on the street and disrespect them for whatever reason, I am disrespecting my mother at the same time. I don't want to do that. If I look in the mirror in the morning and I have a conversation with myself where I beat myself up and I tell myself horrible things, I might as well be saying that to my maker. I don't want to say horrible things to my maker. The relationship that I have with the person on the street and my mother and my maker and myself, that is really a mysterious thing, but it's one thing. It's all the same relationship. We are in relationship with a capital R. I have a relationship with myself, I have a relationship with my maker, and I have a relationship with everyone else on the planet. Those seem like they are three different things, just like every single individual relationship seems like they're individual things, but they are not. It is one relationship. I have one relationship. When I talk to myself and I'm good to myself, I'm good to my mother, I'm good to my maker, I'm good to everyone. It's all one. Just like when I look at an ocean, it's made up of many drops of water. Where does one drop end and another begin? I don't know. It's all one, but they're separate as well. The mystery of the ocean, the mystery of the Trinity, the mystery of communication. That said, the reason I'm talking about all of this is there are certain laws that we must be aware of so that we know how things work. So I know how this relationship works. What laws must I keep in mind so that I don't break the law? Because if you break the law, if you don't follow the law, you can't expect to get results. If I'm conducting a science experiment, for example, and I'm trying to fly from my rooftop to my neighbor's rooftop, and so I'm thinking of different ways to fly, different, vehicles, different methodology, different mechanisms that I can use to fly. And I leap off of my roof with the intention of flying to my neighbor's roof, but I forget about the law of gravity. That could be a very unfortunate experiment for me and a very painful one. And a lot of us have experienced very painful experiences in our relationships, in our conversations, because we're not following the laws. Some of us don't even know what the laws are. By the time we are done with the 9 principles, you will know what the laws are and how to apply them. Principle number 1. There is no neutrality in the universe. I must recognize I am either conforming or transforming 24 hours a day. The reason I want to keep that in mind is because many times when we are dealing with some challenge, something that somebody's bringing up in us, and when you feel bad about something, remember, when something has been brought up in you, it's not about them, it is about you. There's something that you have yet to work through, or you would not feel bad about it. They can say, they, the difficult people, they can say whatever they want and do whatever they want. How you feel about it when you're at home later on that day, that is about you. And if you're feeling dis-ease, if they have brought up dis-ease in you, it is because there's something that you have yet to work through. Now is the time to do it. Because if you don't, you know what's going to happen. If you've probably been around the block before. And if I decide, if I'm dealing with if I'm dating somebody or married to somebody or in a job or have an employee that's driving me nuts, and instead of working through the issue that has been brought up, I just fire them. I quit my job. I divorce you. I break up with you, whatever it may be. That same issue will come up in the next job, in the next employee, the next spouse, just always keeps coming up. The universe is a wonderful teacher. Whatever my lesson is, I'm going to learn it because the universe will make sure of that. Because if I ever try to skip an assignment, and I say, no, I'm just going to break up with you. I can't deal with this. Goodbye. Same role, different actor the very next time. Cycle, 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 cycle. Until finally I have a turning point. This is all about turning points. Remember this, a turning point occurs when I, in this moment between event and response, wake up and recognize this is important. I know again, this is why I'm here. This is an assignment for me. And when that happens, I can change the way I look at it. I can find out what's really going on here. I can try to unlearn some of what I have learned and recognize what's going on. In that moment in time, in that sliver in time when I remember what's going on, and then I remember who I am and why I'm here. See, I give tools like the personal compass. The personal compass helps us remember who we are, why we're here, and what we want. There's a reason why I want to do that. Because in that moment in time, that's a tool, by the way, but it's based on this principle. In that moment in time, when I can show up as who I really am and know again who I am, that's when a miracle occurs. And I say that quite literally because a miracle is a change in perception. Remember that, if you look at the miracle stories, in recent history, if I look at the Bible, for example, now you do not need to subscribe to the Bible. It's not necessary. But when you look at just about any story of miracle occurring in our recent history, if you look at things that we've written down and attribute to being miracles, generally the miracle worker will look at everyone else who's going, and they'll say, what? You were looking at it the wrong way. Like when Jesus made somebody, I can't remember who, stand up and walk because everybody said that they were, crippled. And he said, walk. And the person got up and walked away. Everybody was like, oh my gosh. And Jesus said, what? He could walk the whole time. And when he rose someone from the dead, everybody said, oh my God, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. And Jesus said, he was not dead, he was just asleep. What is with you people? A miracle is a change in perception. So what that means to me and what that means to you is when this moment in time presents itself to you and you recognize it as different, if you want to create a miracle and really transform all of your relationships, create miracles every single day, become a more powerful, mindful communicator, and really illuminate the path of love, here's what you want to do. Change the way you look at things until you see it for what it is. Number one, it's going to be yours. And number two, if you're seeing it in the dark, if I'm looking at this with lovelessness, if I'm looking at you and you're coming from a place of lovelessness, I'm not seeing things correctly because that's an impossibility that I could be seeing you as loveless or that I could be thinking of myself as in the dark. That's impossible because remember that darkness is not a real thing. Darkness, if you look it up, is simply the absence of light. If there is something that we consider to be dark and light is introduced into the situation, there is no more darkness because darkness is simply the absence of light. It's not real. And when you see somebody who appears to be, they're driving you nuts, they appear to be dragging you into battle, that's not real. There's something that you're not seeing correctly. If they're coming to you from a place of lovelessness, if that's true, that could be true. That's not real. They're not in their right mind. Don't believe it. Don't see it that way. Change the way you're looking at it. How can I do that? Show up as what you really are. Remember what makes you up, what's holding you together in those times when you otherwise would fall apart. That's love. That's light. That is energy. When you go right down to it, that is what it is. Remember that. Show up as that. Because there's no neutrality in the universe. You can't just rise above things. Many times people will say things like, well, I'm just going to rise above it. You know what I mean? I'm just going to put it in God's hands. Yeah, well, God put it in your hands. And there's a reason. It's about you. You're supposed to work through it. You can't just give it back. It's your battle. So what are we going to do? Am I going to engage in this battle? I can't rise above it. Well, I thought those were my two options, either engaging or rising above it. Those are not your two options. We tend to, again, look at things the wrong way. We tend to have things backwards. What if you could create a miracle in this moment in time between event and response when you're thinking, what should I do? What should I say? Got a battle? How about instead of engaging in that battle and really dragging everybody and yourself down into such a primitive material level, where it's win or lose, or instead of rising above it and avoiding the situation, which is really what that's doing, and leaving it for the next cycle. How about this? How about remembering who you are and showing up and saying, I know who I am. I am my Father's son. That's who I am. I'm here about my Father's business. I know what's in me. I know what I'm made up of. I know what's in me, but not of me. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show it to you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to you from a loving place. Because if there's one lesson that you can get out of these lessons, remember, you can say anything with love. Anything. It is an impossibility that you can't send a message without infusing it with love. You can always do that. And if I choose to come to that battle, to come to that battleground, if I choose instead of to rise above the battle or engage in the battle, how about I come to that battlefield and I remember who I am? And what that means is I'm going to remember and recognize the love that is in me. And in doing so, I will recognize the love that is in you and that you are made up of. And I will remember that we are not so different. Whatever's troubling you, whatever's causing you not to see that you and I are brothers and sisters, I've just dealt with a different version of that same affliction. And I know you might be in the dark right now, and it's very difficult to recognize people in the dark. I might not be able to recognize you as my master teacher, but that's what you are. If you're bringing up some issue in me, it's because you are a master teacher of mine. You might be disguised, thinly veiled as a difficult person, but I know who you are. You're my master teacher, or you would not be here to help me out of my cycle and help me achieve a turning point in my life, to help me create a miracle. That's what you're here to help me do. And I'm cursing your name? I got to get my thinking straight. You will see things differently. When you see things differently, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at truly change. What is the difference between something looks different and something is different? What is the difference? There is no difference. Something is different when you see it differently. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You will change the way you look at everything when you recognize what people are made of, what you are made of, and coming into that battlefield. You know how to lift the veil so you can see the people as who they really are, your brothers and sisters? You can't recognize people in the dark. It's very difficult. Turn the light on. That's what you're here to do. You are the light. Remember what's in you. Remember what you're made up of. That's love. That is light. That is energy. Don't rise above the battlefield. Illuminate it. Illuminate it. That's what you're here to do. Illuminate. Believe. All right, next week we're going to be talking about principle number 2. And make sure to, if you know people who are struggling choosing their battles or dealing with toxic environments, share this video with them and support this channel and share this video on places like Facebook and Twitter and anywhere else people might go for information like this, because I need support and I think people need as much help as they can get these days. Remembering who we are and remembering, above all else, whatever you have to say, remember, say it in a loving way. You can do that. I can help. If you have any questions or need any help, write a question in the comments below or send me a question to dan@danoconnor.training.com. Stop by my website, danoconnor.training.com, and check out the 9 Principles course, or check out some of my other resources, or become a VIP member and get it all for the rest of your life. What would be better than that? Support this channel and do some of those things, okay? So thank you all for being here. I'll be back next week. We're coming out next week, by the way, with a principle, a live Q&A session, a mail call, and of course, a tactic of the week and a danger phrase and power phrase. So to get all of those good things, make sure to hit the bell notification below. And I look forward to seeing you then. This is Dan O'Connor, signing off.